Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Daily AI Show. Thank you for listening and watching with us today. And today is Wednesday. That means it's News Day. So we're gonna go around the table, find out everybody's most exciting or important news they have for today. And hopefully we will get you informed about everything. This week has been a major week for news. Yesterday was all about Dev Day for OpenAI, but they aren't the only ones. So I'm going to throw this over to Brian for the first story, and let's see what you got, Brian.
Listen, I'm going to pass it if you don't mind, only
Oh, sure.
because God knows there was we could do what happened yesterday in the news. Never mind Dev Day. We could do what happened yesterday. But actually, I want to throw to Andy. And the reason is because Andy, you're somebody who bought the Rabbit R1, and Rabbit came out and said, hey, you know that thing that was really exciting that we told you were going to totally get called large action models, and you're going to be able to do these sort of agentic type things and all that? Yeah. And then so they came out and they said, hey, that's sort of going to be available. And here's the key: in a playground setting, which means, Andy, I think you're now the new official tester of large action models. What I did read on it, and of course, I don't know what'll work or what won't, is that they've gone beyond Spotify and the initial things they had on there. And now you can go out to Google and you can ask for things. The person who wrote the article on ZDNet said that they did have limited success with saying, hey, go find me this product, then put it in my Amazon cart and buy it. And that did work. But then when they tried another one where they said, go find me the best iPhone 16 at Walmart, it tripped up on CAPTCHA, which we'll see a lot of that. That's a tough thing for AI to get past. So just curious if you read about this, Andy, what your impression was. I know you have the Rabbit. You're on mute.
No, I haven't. I haven't tried it, and I'm curious. You said it's in a playground. You mean online, not on the Rabbit?
Well, they do call it the rabbit hole, which I thought was hilarious.
That's right. That's the Rabbit Hole is the online interface to the Rabbit system.
Okay.
But what that means is that the paperweight that I have, beautiful orange paperweight, isn't really involved in the large action model yet. Now, eventually, you can imagine that if you set up certain, configurations in the playground, you'll be able to access those from the device.
Gotcha.
So I'll definitely dig into that, and I'll give you a full report, the Rabbit report.
That sounds like a future episode.
That's what everybody was waiting for, right? Was the large action model. That's what made it sound cool. So even if it's a little bit of that, I feel like it's kind of a win, especially for anybody who bought it. Cause you affectionately call it a paperweight, and how cool would it be, Andy, that something that, look, it was at a price point, as you've said, you were comfortable giving a shot to, but
$100. Yeah.
What if it comes back from the dead a little bit here and actually ends up being something that you can use a little bit? It would be a cool little success story.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, I got a quick story. I always like to get these AI and science stories out there so that, people can hear about all the good that's happening. So the one I think of the two science stories that I have, the one that I think is the most long tail is MIT has come up with a way to, or for robots to be a little more discerning and pay attention or focus on the things that are important to their task. Now, I know this doesn't seem very, flashy or anything like that, but right now, AI and robotics or robots in general, or the embodied AI, if you will, the big hurdle they have right now is they have to have enclosed environments and they have to identify everything that's around them. Then they can break down what it is and how important it is to whatever task that they're given. But what this allows them is to act a little more like humans, in the fact that when you're thinking about your goal, you really toss out or you filter out a bunch of information that isn't important. So this is that part. This is the part that allows them to focus on the task at hand and determine with a flexible structure whether an object or an item is important to the overall task. Again, not flashy, but this will be a huge foundational system or framework for probably for robotics for years to come, because that's one of those big hurdles in robotics development. And the other quick one is, do you want or can you imagine tiny little microbots working together, sort of like a train, to move surgical implements in your body? Well, I've got a deal for you. No. Apparently, one of the harder things to do right now, involving microbots in the human body for surgeries or drug deployment or any of those medical procedure, is they're tiny. They're weak. They can't move like a camera or a surgical tool through the body very effectively, because they just don't have that torque or that strength to move things around. Well, they're starting to train them to work together. So they described it as like a chain where they'll connect with each other so that they have the the combined strength to move, like, let's say, a endoscopy, a camera, through the colon or anything like that. So teamwork makes the dream work. That's essentially those two stories. So
I have a related, at least in the domain of science, I have one that I can follow you on. It's just a short one, but there's a paper on arXiv right now. It was just released, called Psi Agents: Automating Scientific Discovery. And what this is about is a group of agents against an ontological graph. Ontology meaning like the entire knowledge space of all the scientific records and publications and everything else. And it autonomously advances scientific understanding, exploring novel domains, identifying complex patterns, uncovering previously unseen connections in this vast scientific data. So here's the promise of AI and agentic AI actually advancing science rapidly. And so this new article, this new research paper, Psi Agents, I also encourage you to use Notebook LM, upload that paper to Notebook LM and have a little podcast about it. That's going to be the way we digest these very deep and technical scientific papers.
Okay. That sounds awesome. I'm definitely gonna do that, because I love AI and science. They're the most fun stories. But I do want to get Carl on here, because I know in the back channels, Carl was letting us know that he wants to do a whole show on OpenAI Dev Day, but we do need to mention it on the news day. So, Carl, do you want to give us a quick breakdown of everything that happened at OpenAI yesterday? Oh, sounds like you're muted.
You're muted, Carl.
Yeah.
The look on his face.
We know what you said there.
Well, look, I can get it started with some of the things.
All right, that sounds great. Thanks, Brian.
When you're ready there. But I was basically just reading up on this. I sort of missed this yesterday, as far as like, I don't even know if I could have watched it live or whatever, but I wasn't watching any like real time feedback or anything like people were doing with the debate last night, with the VP debate. So there seems to be four main areas that I kind of saw. The fourth one, I think, is the one that's really kind of like the most exciting. They talked about, I'll just name them really quick. So there's model distillation, prompt caching, vision fine tuning, and then real time. And I think all of them are worth talking about. Like Carl, we were saying, like, definitely have a whole show on this. Mm-hmm. But I would just say real time for me was the one that is the most exciting out of those, because of what it potentially can do. It just sort of, it's one of those things where you hear it and you go, oh, that kind of lights me up as far as like what the potentials are. So just really quick before I throw it back over to you, Carl, if you're ready, it just said, with real-time API, Audio is immediately processed by the API without needing to link multiple applications together, making it much faster, cheaper, more responsive. The API also supports function calling, meaning applications powered by it will be able to take actions like ordering a pizza or making an appointment. Real-time will eventually be updated to handle multimodal experiences of all kinds, including video. And then just real quick here on cost. So to process text, API will cost $5 per 1 million input tokens and $20 per 1 million output. When processing audio, the API will charge $100 per 1 million input tokens and $200 per 1 million output. Says OpenAI says this equates to approximately 6 cents per minute of audio input and 24 cents per minute of audio output.
Which is really expensive.
Very.
Like if I'm going to run an application and you're going to be talking to it and chatting to it at a quarter every minute, that's going to add up to dollars very, very quickly. So anyway, go ahead, Carl.
I think just on that, they do have the audio in chat completions API, which is I think it's a little. Oh, it is. Oh, I thought it was going to be cheaper, but it isn't. When I was just reading through it. I thought it was cheaper, but it isn't. We can all assume these costs will go down, but I think the more important part of this, because we've seen all these costs, especially, I really was interested in the prompt caching that Claude already had, Anthropic had. Mm-hmm. Now they've implemented here, so everything just gets halved even more. I think the key thing we have to look at is, let's go beyond, because we're going to do a show on this anyway, but think about what was also, and whoever wants to, talk about this a little bit more, Microsoft Copilot came out, or the updates to it, I think was released yesterday as well. Mm-hmm. And their big focus was on voice. Meta has voice. So if you combine all these things, a lot of the future interactions with software applications has voice. Everything's pointing towards voice, which is I'm more excited about that aspect, because if you think about websites, any app that you use, there's a lot of you have to flip, swipe, text, especially on the website front, especially business interactions. I think though, where that changes a lot of the things, let's say we're walking, driving, running, biking past whatever business, instead of having to look it up, you just talk to the business. Hey, how much do you cost? What do you serve? When do you serve it? When can I come in? All those things that people look on websites to consume, you can now ask it if trained that way. And now imagine, having the agents on top of it, your voice becomes an actual true voice command. So everything that Siri and Alexa, Cortana, all those, the vision of that, a decade ago, a little bit more than a decade ago, that actually can come true pretty quick. And we saw the demo where I think Twilio, I think that's how you describe it, and the real-time AI API, I want you to order 400 strawberries, and it called the guy's phone and ordered 400 strawberries. Can't pay it by credit card, paid it by cash. But I think that's, to me, the broader implication of how does our interactions online change now with everybody being able to build with things like this.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that the real-time API enables a wide range of app developers now to deliver the impressive demos of the natural language interaction, really sophisticated voicing of the AI, build them into a wide range of applications. So and the implication is that eventually the keyboard and text and typing is going to go away, because we're going to be talking to our computers. All the apps that are now, basically requiring that you type into them, those you're going to be able to talk to very fluently and get fluent responses back. And so there's going to be an explosion of app developers and other major already existing apps incorporating voice interfaces to to their applications.
You could.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what's going to be made. I already got a whole bunch of ideas. I won't take all of your time because we're, we have a huge well of ideas that we want to do, but only so much time in which to implement them. And it looks like Beth was able to join us today. So Beth, you're on the hot seat. What's your most exciting story?
All right. So Hurricane Helene did major damage in Florida and then went up further and did major damage in North Carolina. One of the places that has extreme damage in North Carolina is Spruce Pine, North Carolina. And people may remember that way long ago, we talked about the supply chain for chips that power AI. And Spruce Pine is the location of the mine with the purest quartz silica sand, maybe is what I'm saying. So there's a lot of stories about like, what does this mean? The first things that I saw was like, oh, there's no replacement for this. And this is going to be a major problem. The most recent stories that I've seen haven't said when Spruce Pine will be able to be back in production, but it is the most cost-effective, purest source, which is why it's being used. But it's not true to say there are no other sources. There's no purification process. There are some other sources. The top two in the article that I read said China and Russia, so I'm not sure that helps us. But there are other places that produce like 99% as pure as that. And are also there are purification processes that are more resource intensive, which means more expensive. But the initial thing that kept coming out was like, this is gonna do horrible things to the supply chain, and things may get expensive. But I'm not sure that it would be the total, like as soon as that sand runs out, there's absolutely nothing. So just a heads up if you're reading some tech stories, because that first thing was like Spruce Pine is all there is, and it got hammered. And I haven't seen anything about the status of the mines because, of course, the community got hammered, and that's the first that's the first important story that's coming out of North Carolina. But that's my story today.
Was there any speculation on the numbers thrown out, what they expect, like price increases or anything like that? I mean, it's super early, so I don't know if there's anything like that. But.
No, and I'm saying price increases. None of the articles I saw said price increases. They were just like, the purification process is more resource intensive. And there are other sources that are not quite as pure from these other places. So it seemed to me, and the reason that I was looking, also like our hearts go out to everyone affected by that hurricane. And the reason that I was looking was because early on, way before hurricane, just like, hey, let's look at the supply chain as things are ramping up, right? NVIDIA can't produce as much as people want to buy, but there are other limitations. And one of the other limitations was like, I don't know, Spruce Pine supplied like the product for everyone who made chips. And that's because they were the best. Maybe they are the best when they come back.
I have two chip stories just very quickly.
Oh yeah.
So the first one is that Google has combined AI and chip design with what they call the alpha chip reinforcement learning method for designing chip layouts. So you can imagine how complex the layout is of a chip. And in order to improve its efficiency, you want to have the parts of those trillions of transistors that are in those chips, really nanoscale things that are going to nanometers is the way they measure these things. You want to have them laid out in such a way that the right component parts are near the other component parts that they work with most frequently. So anyway, This speeds up the design process of chip floor plans, as they call them, and makes them more optimal in terms of performance. And that same technology was used to develop Google's tensor processing units, which are, in fact, an alternative to GPUs, graphic processing units. But this new system, alpha chip reinforcement learning, will be made more widely available, I think, for chip design. The next thing is that Cerebras is a chip company that filed yesterday for an IPO. Now, Cerebras is the leading company that could challenge the dominance of NVIDIA in the long run because of a proprietary architecture that they've developed that removes the bandwidth problem. A lot of the time that's taken in inference is shuttling information from memory to and from outside storage to memory in the chipset. And so what their system does is it does an amazing job by putting 44 gigabytes of on-chip RAM, which is 880 times more memory capacity than the NVIDIA H100, but not quite so many times the upcoming Blackwell series from NVIDIA. But still, it's an order of magnitude larger in terms of its capacity to do this really rapidly on the thing. So they're getting public financing now, which will allow them to really push harder and faster to try to challenge NVIDIA in the chip space.
That sounds good. More competition is always good, right? Especially in the pitchforks and shovels.
There's lots of room. There's lots of room for players like Grok and Cerebras to take a piece of the market out there because there's more demand in the market than NVIDIA can even supply.
Right.
Real quick, speaking of NVIDIA, I don't know if people predicted this or not. I wasn't really thinking this because you think of NVIDIA and how the monumental success they've had or whatever, but they just released their own multimodal language model called NVLM 1.0, and it's already supposed to rival. Now, look, we know every one that comes out rivals GPT-4, whatever, whether it's actually comparable to 4.0 and things like that. I'm not sure. But NVIDIA kind of getting in the game, where they're releasing their own models. They're not short on cash. So if NVIDIA wants to build their own data centers with their own hardware and then put a lot of compute towards building their own language models, well, I would certainly say they have a good shot of being very, very competitive. So where we're seeing OpenAI and other big players here looking to invest and create their own chips, their own hardware, you have NVIDIA, who's known more for hardware, now dipping over into the language model side. So I don't know if this means in 10 years we just have three or four companies at the top and they all do hardware and software because they have to, and maybe they're all in energy at the same time. We've talked about that several times. So in 10 years, do the top 3, 4, 5 companies all own nuclear reactors of some size, all have data centers, all create language models of whatever the most advanced multimodal, whatever we're calling it in 10 years. And they all create their own hardware to run and implement, and it's proprietary and all that. I think there's a really good.
That's an insightful future vision. I think that's right. I think that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up because that's kind of a big deal, and that also came out yesterday on the 1st. I mean, October 1st. I think everybody was literally waiting for Q4 day one, and they're just like, drop it because there's an insane amount of stuff that came in yesterday. We haven't really been talked about like some of the Microsoft with their what's it called when they can see everything? What's that called?
When they can see everything.
Recall. They relaunched Recall.
Yes. All I wanted to say was
sorry. I was like, what? See everything. What is it? Yeah, no.
By the way, can I just say Beth is the best at that? Like every time I forget a word, I think Beth guesses it right the first time. We're just after 300 plus shows, Beth, we're just locked in here.
We are locked in. Also, send your kids to improv camp.
Listen.
So Microsoft did announce Microsoft Vision, or Copilot Vision, I should say, which allows Copilot to see the web pages on your screen. So as you're surfing around in Edge, Copilot now is reading what you're reading.
There was a company way back, I mean, like last year, called I think it was called Recall or something very similar, that literally did this exact same thing, where it would record everything that was on your screen. It would record everything that you were, speaking to it. And I think it just never gained traction just because it was a small company. I actually downloaded it. There's like one, it was actually a competitor to another one that was first started. And I downloaded both and they're both recording. I was like, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? Because I'm not actually using this. So within like a couple of weeks, I was like, just delete, because I think it was interfering with something. But it's very funny that Microsoft brought it in, faced backlash because it had major security vulnerabilities, and then came out with it again. So we'll see how if people actually use it, or like, I don't know. I just, the 2 weeks that I was using it, I never ever needed to go back and like, oh, on Thursday I was talking about this. I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe with voice, I can go back and
I think you just nailed it.
Right?
If it gets good enough where Recall is taking screenshots or whatever, and is sort of keeping that multimodal memory, and it gets to the point where you can easily have conversations with your computer or device about things that happen, I 1,000% see me using something like that, but not tomorrow. Like, I just think it's going to have to, like, there's some other things that need to come together as far as agents to make that all sort of seamlessly make sense to me. I could definitely see that, though. I must open up 100 different tabs on any given week with what I do for my main job. Never mind what we do for the Daily AI Show, which is his own beast. I could see it being really helpful to have that sort of multimodal memory kind of sitting there somewhere where I can go, hey, what was I looking at, and what was the thing, what was like my process for looking at it, and so that if it had understanding of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different websites, so it was watching sort of the chain of thought as I was bouncing from place to place, and it could regurgitate that back to me and say like, well, you sort of left off on this at this landing page. You had looked at the 3 of them beforehand, and the common thread between all of this is that you were thinking on this path. Thanks. That's exactly where I need to pick this up. I'm updated now, and I'm moving forward, because there's so many times where I get sidetracked. Other customers, clients, coworkers need stuff from me, and I abruptly stop. And I don't stop and write notes really quick like I should and say like, this is where I'm leaving off, like a doctor's note. I should do that. I don't. And so what happens is there's a lot of just natural forgetfulness that comes along with, if I don't pick up that ball on that research topic, till a week later, man, it would be so nice to get caught back up really quick with my own brain. So I just don't see me using it tomorrow, but I do like the idea of it. We'll just have to see how far it goes, I guess.
And I like the example that you gave. For me specifically, it's got to be on hardware though. I don't like the idea of that information having to be constantly set to the cloud to process. So I'd want an hardware model to be able to do that. And that would solve a lot of the security and privacy concerns as well if it was just all localized to my machine. So maybe that'll be part of the evolution of it. But I do really like that use case. Now, I wanted to make sure before we closed up for the day that we quickly go through California's AI laws that they passed, especially since Governor Newsom just vetoed the big controversial one, SB 1047. Now, just a little background. SB 1047, the reason why it was contentious is the AI companies, which most of them reside in California, didn't really like it. And I believe the governor gave his reasons as it being a little too vague, right? It was written to try to address AI companies and their responsibility if there's an AI disaster, but it was so broad that it didn't break down what kinds of disasters without any detail. And he also said it would affect AI companies no matter how big or small they were, and things like that. So he kicked it back so that they can they can refine it a little more. But they do have almost like 18 other laws that they went through, and just broad strokes. the things that they cover is AI risk. So they created they passed a law so that they could have their Office of Emergency Services analyze potential risks of generative AI. Training data. So companies will have to identify where their training data is coming from in a broad sense, not like you getting it from, you know, this person or anything like that, but whether it be collecting from their services or using licensed material, things like that. And I think that'll answer a lot of the current cases about copyright infringement and things like that. Privacy. So all of the California privacy laws will now extend to AI and AI systems. Education. This one I like because it was about there was two of them, and one of them was to include in part of their public education system to include AI literacy, which I think that'll be huge for a state as big as California, right? And how large that public school system is. And then the other one is to the counterpoint is to have superintendents create working groups so that they can study how AI will be used in their education system. So I think those are two of the most important ones for future AI literacy. And this is an interesting one. I would have glossed over this if I didn't think about it in this context, but they came up with a law to define what AI is. Right. So a lot of nomenclature, a lot of different definitions are thrown out, especially in the tech space. Like everyone does not have a standardized AGI definition or anything along those lines. And so California has now defined artificial intelligence as an engineered or machine-based system that varies in its level of autonomy and that can, for explicit or implicit objectives, infer from the input, receives how to generate outputs that can influence physical or virtual environments. That sounds like a legal definition for sure. So we'll see if there's any loopholes or if that's got to be updated. Then we also have healthcare, AI robocalls, deep fakes, watermarks, and how AI can be used to generate actors and digital twins and things like that. So a lot of information to unpack there, but I figure we give it some broad strokes. Now, does anybody have any other story that's really pressing and they want to talk about?
I have one. Andy, go ahead.
So I wanted to hit this one because it's fresh and it's relevant to what we began discussing yesterday, which is AI and its impact on productivity near term and in the long term. And this is from a recent study from a company called UpLevel. UpLevel is a software engineering management and analytics dashboard company. So you can imagine big engineering departments in enterprise have this product, UpLevel, tracking the productivity of all of their engineers. So, GitHub Copilot is one of the most used coding assistants out there. And they reference their studies saying that developers are able to write code 55% faster with a coding assistant like GitHub Copilot. So you see a huge amount of things. But UpLevel's analysis says, wait a minute. People are saying this is really helpful for our productivity, but they're also saying, you know what? I'm kind of having to be more of a code reviewer because faster doesn't mean good. So UpLevel's study measured engineers' output and found no significant gains. And use of GitHub Copilot introduced 41% more bugs. Hence the idea that they have to be a code reviewer now. They can generate code a lot faster, but they have to be a code reviewer. And the study measured pull requests, cycle time, and the time to merge code from the engineer's local branch into the repository, and all the way through the cycle throughput. And the number of pull requests in totality found no significant improvements for developers using Copilot. So caveat here on productivity for coding, which we assume is really active. And I don't think people are going to walk away from coding copilots now, but it's not really delivering the productivity gains necessarily at the enterprise level that we expected.
Right. And it's like a different skill, right? It's a different skill set. So if it makes your coding faster, but you're not fast at identifying the problems, then that's part of but like Nix is the efficiency gain for building code faster. And that's one of the things that O1 was supposed to do really well, right? So maybe it's a combination of models. The one last story, and I know Brian has one too, is Scale AI is just did an IPO, and Scale AI is basically a data. It's a data company, and it provides really good data. And it used to provide really good data to a small set of use cases, and now it's basically is looked at as the main source of high quality data for current and next models. And so their IPO, like more conversation about that is something to watch. The CEO, I think, is 27. So it's also a next generation kind of thing. And one of the things that is likely to differentiate the next level of models that are going to come out in the next 6 months is their data. Because of course, right, we've already seen the they've eaten all the data. Now we have to go to the crappy data, or we have to like transcribe all audio, or whatever that's going to be. And this is to a certain extent the answer to that. So, Brian.
Yeah. And I love that. And by the way, that's not the company I work for. I know that gets confused too, because I work for Scaled with a K in it. But
and also a D. This is Scale
AI versus Scaled Consulting, yes. Who does AI consulting? So data versus consulting. Yeah, it's always funny when I see that, because they're like you said, they're growing into a massive company, and people every once in a while be like, "Oh, Scale AI," and I'm like, "No, not that company." I only had one thing really quick, and I just thought it was a funny tweet, X, whatever you want to call it, post from Pika, who you might remember from several months back, came out with some video tools, text to video and things like that. I just love the way this starts. This is, sorry, we forgot our password. Pika 1.5 is here. So I just love that, because like we just haven't really heard a ton from them. I kind of knew this was coming only because I actually saw the post from Ethan Malik on LinkedIn, talking about using it and creating some visuals and things like that, some videos. So I haven't played with it. I don't know, obviously it just came out. I remember messing with Pika back when it first sort of launched. So, yet again, I think we're seeing this again and again, which is, where is Sora, right? Well, as we kind of heard from Carl last week, it kind of makes sense at this point not to release Sora, if Sora can only do what they first showed several months ago, because now there's several tools that are very, very similar. Kling out of China, Pika. God, there's like 4 or 5 others that are doing very good, either text to video, longer form video. Pika is talking about how they can do bigger screenshots, mind-blowing Pika effects. I don't even know what that means. That breaks the law of physics. There's more to love about it. They're showing, I'm watching on my other screen, and they're making like a dog inflate, and they're also making things melt. I guess those are like sort of the Pika effects you could do. So go play with it. I'm not sure if there's any free credits in there or anything like that, like they used to be, but if I was OpenAI, I'd be like, there's really no rush. I know we talked about Sora, and that's great, but everybody wasn't nearly as far behind us as everybody maybe initially expected. And now it's like they're going to have to come out with something, I think, that's a little bit more higher end.
Right, because they have to live up to their steamroller effect, right?
Yeah.
Sam threw the gauntlet down months ago, saying, "Well, if you're basing something on now, we're going to steamroll you in a few months."
Yeah.
So that makes total sense to me. It's like, well, Runway's been in the news. They're making Hollywood deals. Stability got James Cameron. Pika's releasing their their latest model. I do like the anti-hype version of their campaigns or just campaigns in general.
Yeah.
Because it's so polished with Google and other large foundation models. So the smaller guys, they'll just going the counter campaign with just like, oh yeah, here's this. Like Mistral is the king of just dropping without saying anything.
I mean,
So,
I look at Pika and I go like Snap or Snapchat, but Snap, the
Yeah.
company should snap them up, pun intended on that one, or like a Meta or something like that, because when you look at what they're doing, it definitely has that more playful side. And I look at that and I go, oh my God, yeah, Pika 1.5 looks like it's built for fun on social media. And
Right.
so when you look at a Snapchat, and I thought they'd be dead years ago, but Snapchat has continued to be relevant with their filters and things like that. And then you look at something like this and you go, yeah, I don't know. It almost seems like there's an acquisition looming for something like this, because they seem to be building and showing with Pika effects. That's a very social media Gen YZ, whatever alpha type thing, with like fun effects, kind of like what Meta has out there. So I guess we'll have to find out. But Justin was asking, like, so you're saying Sora wait likely to continue, how many days and counting? I don't know, Justin. We'd have to look how many days we're at on Sora. But yeah, I don't think there'd be any rush at this point unless they have something that's significantly either better in quality, length of video. Cost obviously would be a huge one, because we know Sora initially was very expensive to run, and we never even got to what the projected pricing would be for that. So we'll have to find out, as that goes.
And estimates were that Sora took 10 minutes to generate the time, and like that's a non-starter. You can't be more expensive and longer.
I mean,
right? Like,
for a movie studio,
unless your output is like 10 minutes long, that would be
just
huge,
a couple seconds.
none of them can do that.
I mean, if it's movie studio quality, what's 10 minutes, right? If you know the output's going to be great, that's nothing. But is Sora supposed to be for us? In which case 10 minutes is ridiculous. Nobody's going to wait for that for an idea to pop up or whatever. But if you're James Cameron, even though that's not what company he's associated with, but if like you're a movie studio or whatever, and it's giving you consistently good shots that you can now use as like part of a indie flick or something like that, 10 minutes. I mean, I don't know though. It just depends on the quality of it. I know we're getting off topic here, Jimmy. I'll let you bring it back.
It's based on your prompt, right? So like 10 minutes to get something that you thought you prompted, but it didn't get what you meant.
Perhaps.
Times like 2 hours is like, no. Now we're way beyond that. This is helpful.
Yeah, can't be really used for quick ideation on it for sure.
If it made it a sketch first, if it was a quick lo-fi sketch that could be done in 30 seconds, even
so you're saying like a storyboard of the scene before the actual scene?
I mean, I'm just saying, technology should follow what we're already doing, and storyboarding is a very fast way to see if what you put in your prompt would in fact be what it's doing. And if the AI was smarter to come back and go, look, before we spend time and money on your money on this, let's just storyboard sketch this out. It'll be like flipbook quality, but this is basically what we're thinking. Is this what you were thinking of? And then you could look at it and go, oh yeah, no, I didn't mean like that when I said sunset or whatever. And maybe there's some iterations there on
it's
the
a good idea.
And then it says, when you're ready to hit go, hit the expensive button and then let it render, essentially, right? This is exactly how it's been done forever and ever and ever. So it seems to me that it would make sense for these AI tools to follow a similar path. Now,
and
again,
those are
other upper level, but
right.
Those are happening in other AI video companies. Like, it is a good idea that people not Sora implemented.
Right.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Luma Labs, let's see it. You're already in the storyboard space. Let's go. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have another story? Otherwise, we're definitely on time. Okay. So we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you, everybody who joined us for the stream, and everybody who's in chat. We love seeing you. Some always great conversations there. They always make me laugh. I love it. We've got a couple more days in the week yet, coming Thursday and Fridays, where we'll wrap up with our bi-weekly. So definitely stick around for the rest of the week with us. And remember, there is that newsletter. please take a look at it. It's getting better and better, and I'm really proud of the work that Brian's really done on the newsletter. Fantastic information on that. So you can always sign up at thedailyAIshow.com, and that comes out every Sunday. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Aloha.